Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi duel? Let's go. I'm Jill Bearup. I enjoy hitting people with swords in a choreographed fashion, and this scene is a masterclass in how storytelling is so important in your filmed fight, and cinematography, and set design, and acting, and music, and then choreography. Well, it's not that choreography doesn't matter at all, it's just not as important as a lot of other things. And if you don't believe me on that right now, let's see if I can persuade you. Note that this is not an endorsement for just getting your actors to improvise their fights, because 1, safety first, and 2, it's probably gonna look really bad. So the plot of Return of the Jedi goeth thusly. The Death Star Mark II is under construction and the rebels are on a desperate mission to, you know, blow it up, but as it turns out, it's a trap! Indeed. In the meantime, Luke is processing his dad being Darth Vader and his need to turn him back to the light, because a Jedi's gotta do what a Jedi's gotta do, you know what I mean?
I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, but what if they aren't delusions? Eventually they do blow up the Death Star, Vader turns on the Emperor, the day is saved, let's have a party with the teddy bears, the end. The important thing to note at the beginning of the film, when everybody is trying to rescue Han from Jabba's palace, is this. Look how calm Luke is. He's force kicking, he's blocking blaster bolts with his lightsaber, he's performing feats of daring do. Thinks he's a Jedi Knight, huh? Well, he is at least acting the part. Even in a situation where everything is very complicated, our boy is doing fine. Although, side note, I feel if this scene were in the prequels or the sequels, there would be dozens of videos talking about how illogical it is and how it just doesn't make any sense at all. I love this scene, and I love how it serves as a demonstration of the adaptability of our heroes, even when everything is pure unadulterated chaos. But basically everybody nearly dies while trying to rescue Han Solo here. But the important point is that Luke is calm regardless. This is not true of Luke's previous interaction with Vader on Cloud City. Luke is afraid of Vader, Vader is obviously superior to Luke, the fight does not go well at all for Luke. The question that we must answer in Return of the Jedi, therefore, is this. Has Luke learned enough to win? Not in terms of who has the lightsaber skills to win the fight, but who is going to win the moral war? And at the start of Luke and Vader's confrontation, we have some hope that it's going to be Luke. He gives himself up to his father and immediately goes to work trying to persuade him to turn back to the light, but his speechifying on the forest moon of Endor isn't enough to prevent Darth Vader from taking him to see the Emperor. Even so, Luke remains very calm.
You're wrong. Soon I'll be dead, and you with me.
He's not really expecting to survive this, is the thing. He's expecting his friends to do their jobs and blow them all to Kingdom Come. This is a personal mission that he feels he must try regardless.
Your overconfidence is your weakness.
Your faith in your friends is yours.
Even though he's technically losing and a captive and about to die, he feels in control. But then the Emperor seems to have all the cards.
It was I who allowed the Alliance to know the location of the shield generator.
And you can see the panic starting to appear on Luke's face. If Jabba's sail barge demonstrates Luke's amazing flexibility in the face of certain kinds of violence and chaos and what have you, the scene with the Emperor is where we see the limits of it. Because you can see the conflict on Luke's face, you can see the fear for his friends there. We feel the tension, and that tension is only ramped up by the fact that we keep cutting back to our other heroes to see what they're doing and find out that things are actually getting pretty interesting for them out there. On the Forest Moon, things are not going well, but there is hope. And Luke is initially able to control his feelings, but then the Death Star turns out to be weaponized and it's another blow to Luke. And note the contrast between Luke and the Emperor and their absolute stillness and the scenes that we keep cutting back to with Lando and Han and Leia. Luke has no way of knowing what the outcome will be, and up in that darkened room looking out at ships being blown up, it all seems pretty hopeless. When he thought he would die but the Emperor would be defeated, that was one thing, but watching all of his friends die ostensibly for nothing, that does not do good things to a person. And so while we're rooting for Luke to resist the influence of the dark side, he has to do so off his own bat, not because he knows that there's any hope for his friends. But it turns out to be too much, and faced with the one person who could stop all of the attacks and stop all of his friends dying, Luke does what we know to be a bad plan and tries to attack the Emperor and is of course immediately blocked by Vader, and then we cut away to another scene, and when we come back, we're already in the fight. So having told you the choreography, as in the actual moves the swords are making, is pretty unimportant, let me show you why. The actual moves by Luke are upward cut left to right, horizontal cut right to left, editing bobbles so we see that bit twice, left to right cut, cut for Vader's left leg, cut for the head, then repeat, right to left cut, left to right cut, leg cut, head cut, boot downstairs. Did you notice that editing oopsie before I pointed it out? Maybe. If you did you care about it? Probably not. And that's not just because it's a pretty small mistake, it's also because the investment in the scene is the important thing, rather than the details. When it comes to what movies you like, you are just allowed to like things whether other people think they're good or not. But seeing as providing justifications for your fight feels is basically what we do here, let us continue. This phrase ends with Luke kicking Vader down the stairs. And the Emperor is so cacklingly happy about Luke giving in to fear and hate and anger. The menacing music continues. Yeah, Luke, just give in to your entirely justifiable feelings of anger and go nuts on this guy. But Luke has a larger vision, and so he shuts off his lightsaber and Vader comes back to him with,
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
and there's that Force theme to tell us that Luke is, at least temporarily, back on balance, and so he goes back to his original plan, which is hit him in the feels.
I will not fight you, Father.
Luke has moved through the shock of that knowledge about Vader being his father and accepted it, and now he's using it to try and turn Anakin back to the light. But the music, at least, is aware that it's not going to work out just yet, and Luke retreats as Vader comes up the stairs again. Luke is intimidated, we are intimidated, the music is intimidated. We know there's going to be more violence, we're just waiting for it to start. But because Luke is back on his relatively even emotional keel, when the violence starts again, it's Vader on the attack.
You are unwise to lower your defenses.
Vertical head cut to right leg, vertical head cut to right leg. Just happened again, Mum. And then we walk a little bit, and then Vader on the offensive, striking mostly horizontally, right to left to right, 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 and pause. Now for this next phrase we have another contrast set up between Luke in Empire and Luke in Jedi. In Empire, when Luke tries to take the initiative, it doesn't really go well for him.
You'll find I'm full of surprise.
But in Jedi it works better because he has a clear objective, which isn't just beat Vader, don't die. And so when he moves first, it's not to attack, it's to disengage and then jump and then just get out of the way, really. And back to the talking.
Thought to betray you, Father. I feel the good in you. The conflict.
There is no conflict.
The Force theme says otherwise, Anakin, and this is why people love this fight. It's got nothing to do with whether or not the choreography is complex enough. The sword work in the final edit, at least, is relatively speaking fairly simple, and as we've seen, quite often phrases are just a couple of moves repeated a couple of times. The complexity that we are enjoying comes from the editing, the environment, from the third person present who knows what he's gonna do, and most of all from the verbal and emotional struggles which intertwine with the physical fight. Sadly, the talkie-talkie in this instance is again not efficacious. Vader throws his lightsaber, Luke falls, and now we stalk. Now Vader did get a little bit worked up during the earlier part of the duel, you can tell from his mechanical breathing, but he's slowed right down again now. And the slightly creepy mechanical evenness of the breathing is another sign that Luke may be hidden right now, but he's not in control. I mean, honestly, if Vader was feeling practical about it, he could just turn the lights on, but the point is to entice Luke to the dark side through fear and uncertainty and anger and aggression. This darkness and uncertainty is meant to make you feel anxious for Luke, and it does.
I will not fight you.
Luke has tried using his words twice or three times now, and it hasn't worked so far. But Vader has words too.
It is the only way you can save your friends.
Oh dear, and here we go straight to the heart of our poor benighted protagonist. Luke's friends are in mortal peril fighting the Empire, and his love for his friends is a weakness that Vader seeks to exploit. Which he does, with pinpoint accuracy.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
Now, dramatically speaking, this phrase is great. Look at those pieces of the set getting cut up. Look at Luke's rage and how Vader is forced onto the defensive. Choreographically speaking, it's, well, Luke tries for either a stab for the head or an overhead cut and then swings his lightsaber wildly back and forth while mostly not hitting anything except the scenery. Did he just run past Vader there and not get cut in half? Anyway, a few more on-target attacks, which Vader actually has to parry. Vader even tries an overhead cut, and then there's this long retreat by Vader as Luke just wails on him. He has completely lost it, and there are lots of long, sweepy strikes which give us the maximum swooshiness of the lightsaber, because it looks cool. Side note, I'm pretty sure there's an extra unnecessary clash visual effect in here, but I'm not actually going to tell you where it is, so if you spot it, do let me know. Also, while I generally don't enjoy fight scenes which mostly take place in the dark, I do make an exception when the combatants are fighting with giant glow sticks that make their every move very obvious. And then after that long retreat, in the next section, Vader tries to fight back, but you can still see him on the retreat. Luke is getting wilder and even more uncontrolled, his face is just pure unadulterated rage, and oh, there goes your hand again, Anakin. And the music again here is not triumphant, it's dramatic, but it's not happy. But even here, in the midst of all this, hand chopping is as far as Luke goes. He's threatening Vader with his lightsaber afterwards, but he could have just chopped off his head. Like, there was nothing stopping him from doing that. But Luke realizing that he has dealt the same damage to Anakin as Anakin dealt to him is a moment. And we spend a lot of time on Luke's face at this point for this reason. We need to know that he knows what this means. As a kid, I watched Return of the Jedi before I watched Empire Strikes Back, and so I didn't know that Luke had previously lost a hand, and so I hadn't really noticed that he was wearing a glove, and assumed that when he chopped off Vader's hand, it was somehow magically transferred onto his own hand. Obviously that's not at all what happened, but emotionally speaking, that's what we're meant to be thinking of, so... And so that he doesn't give in to temptation because he knows that it's a possibility, he throws the lightsaber away. Which, as it turns out, may not have been the best idea.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
So be it, Jedi.
It's a bit like that moment in your TTRPG where you're like, okay, so are we out of initiative order? And the DM smiles at you, and suddenly the creepy old man who's been hanging around has heretofore unannounced lightning powers. Who could have seen that coming? While the rebels have got the shield down and are now making their way through the partially constructed Death Star 2 electric boogaloo, Luke is in bad trouble. But Vader is up again, and next to the Emperor, and following him in as he gets closer and closer to Luke, and Luke gets closer and closer to death. Did any of those words get through? Apparently yes. Let's have that Force theme again. And even though we can see that it's hurting him terribly and the quality of his mechanical breathing is irreparably worse after he's done, Anakin does it. He does the right thing. And Luke is saved, and so is Anakin. If this were a more cynical series, it might point out that a lifetime of wickedness cannot be atoned for by a single good deed, but Star Wars has never been that kind of series. Tinkly Imperial March, robbed of much of its menace by the choice of instruments. Are we in pain yet? Return of the Jedi is a film which gives us grace. Vader no longer thought of himself as Anakin Skywalker, but he was once, and even though Luke has no reason to believe that it's likely that he will turn back to the light side, he goes and tries anyway. He offers grace because he is a Jedi like his father before him. And doing so costs him dearly, sets him on a very dark path, nearly tips him over the edge into evil himself. Not to mention almost killing him. But he does it anyway because he believes it's the right thing to do. The original title for this film was Revenge of the Jedi, and I'm really glad they renamed it because that's kind of the whole point. Luke's revenge, if any, reminds him that revenge is not the answer. If you'd like a complete breakdown of Luke and Vader in Empire Strikes Back, then do leave a comment and let me know, because that is also a very fun one. Otherwise, I will see you next time.